this what are we calling it? Eagle Eye, Hawkeye technology. Sony is going to be running it, pretty much again replacing the chain gang and the NFL when it comes down to at least like yard measurements and spots. Apparently, it's accurate up to a quarter inch. And apparently, they're more concerned. It seems like how they were on the MLB side with pitch clock and just speeding the game up. Apparently, this Hawkeye should improve the speed of measurement by up to like 40 seconds, saving 40 seconds whenever it's needed. So less commercial cut, less extending of the game, more right back to the action, which is worse for the players because they definitely take advantage of those situations as like an extra timeout. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, it looks like the NFL following suit on what the MLB plans to do at the beginning of next year, starting the age of the robo ump.
What the fuck is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Ryan. I'm here with Randy. We're back for another riveting episode of the Better Sports Show. Randy, how are you doing this evening?
Ryan, how the hell we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've embraced the fact that about half of me is the embodiment of like the Homelander. Like, anytime a BMW driver starts to tailgate me and the violin starts playing in the back of my mind and all the intrusive thoughts come in, instead of fighting it, you know what? I'm going to embrace it. We all exactly who we are. Well, you have to live with that. Woo! And you
I
know
hear
what?
that.
You get it. See, you get it. You know what it's like. And you know how we live with life? By gambling. Sports betting, to be exact. And we're right in the middle of the glut of MLB season. We have tons of great stuff to cover on the show tonight. Some tips, a little bit of news. Let's hop right into it. Something I think people overlook when they're betting on baseball is that, unlike the other sports, an arena in the NHL or a arena in the NFL, right? 50 yards is always going to be 50 yards. The blue line's always going to be where the blue line is. In baseball, the different parks have little idiosyncrasies, they have little anomalies in them, but details are different. A home run in one park may not be a home run in another park due to weather, elevation, and just where the end of the field is, right?
Or if
Like,
it's left field in Boston.
yeah, left field in Boston, exactly, right? We have a gigantic fucking wall called the Green Monster at the end of our stadium.
Great for double props, though. Chances of a double in that park got to be 50% higher than any other, though, for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. When we scout guys and we would bring guys in, that's actually something they look for. Can you pull it to that side and get elevation enough where it's just like that easy double off the Green Monster? I don't know how many times I've heard that call in my life growing up. Double off
Oh,
the Green Monster.
sure. We heard it at least 20 times during that crazy Yankees Red Sox series. Something ridiculous. There had to be at least 15 plus doubles, I think, in total hit between the three games. Uncanny.
That was a great series. It was like those early to mid 2000s battles they would have where both teams were just on fire, on top. Whoever would beat each other in the playoffs was probably going to the World Series, was probably going to win it. So that was excellent, excellent little piece of baseball we had there. And another thing, right? So weather, elevation. Let's just use the home run derby as an example. Texas Rangers ballpark. If they had that somewhere else, a lot of those home runs that died on the warning track or like right before it, where all the little kids are running under it, grabbing them as you watched your home run bet parlays die. The children caught the balls and all your money went down the drain. If they had that somewhere else, that probably gets out of there. The biggest, most mainstream example of this, regular example, is Coors Field. Due to the elevation and the way it's built in Colorado, Coors Field, the ball fucking flies out of there. It flies out of there.
No, I mean, again, elevation is definitely a point to take into account. Me personally, though, since I've been dabbling quite a bit in player props the past 6 to 8 weeks of the season, I'd say I've taken a step back from betting money lines just for, again, just how wacky it is to see the amount of offense these days in the MLB. Team scoring 10 plus runs per game is the new normal. Or at least, again, right, once everybody gets in their rhythm second half of the season. I think it's definitely something good to take into account if you're looking at player props, but I wouldn't put too much in it. Me personally, when I'm looking at anything like that for like the big hits, and again, I'm not a big home run prop guy. But if I were to look at that, I'm looking at something pretty much a little bit more specific as far as just performance, whether it's against the batter's performance, whether he's better against lefties or righties, how that slugging percentage looks, all depending on if they're righty or lefty. Because even now that we're seeing a bit of an anomaly, and a lot of these power hitters that are lefties, they're actually dominating the same side and not righties. Lefty batters all of a sudden are performing worse against righties and better against lefties, and vice versa. So there's certain things in the hitting stats that could definitely be helpful, but definitely knowing what park we're talking about home runs being hit on is definitely something to take into account. And I believe, again, I want to say it's Cleveland with the way their stadium arena was reconstructed. I believe this past off season, there's now a wind tunnel essentially in right field. I believe that stadium is home to the most home runs in right field because of that this year.
Really? See, these are the interesting things, the little things that pop up during research, right? So if you have a team, they're full of excellent righties. Does that play a factor? I wonder if that's why Cleveland's so good this year. Did they retool their roster to take advantage of
So
that?
it was more leading up a couple weeks before the All-Star break, but pretty much yes. That in theory at least, right? Who's to say that most of the guys that they got a piece of that ball, was that going to be completely out anyway, or right, or did that wind tunnel help with the extra 2-3 feet where it just barely clears the wall? Don't directly quote me on that. I know it was one team this year. They renovated the right field side because I believe there were 2 or 3 signs removed in the right field upper deck. That is just now it's a clear opening, and apparently, yeah, that is a cause to their early success in the season. And again, I believe for them, they have the most home runs hit to right field as of that reporting. That was about halfway through the season, so we're about a month removed from that. I'll have to look at some numbers to see if that still holds up. But and again, I'd be surprised again if I was a engineer of some sort for these ballparks. I'm sure things like that are talked about.
Oh yeah, for those of you, maybe you're a casual baseball fan or you don't follow it as much. If you've ever seen the infamous photo of the Miami Dolphins stadium, where during the heat of the day, the home bench will be
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
shade, but
Hmm.
the away bench will be in the direct sunlight. It's shit like that.
I
I
believe
fe
it. I saw the same thing. I believe that you mentioned. I think the opposing sideline could get up to 20 degrees hotter. So on just a regular 90-degree day, apparently the that opposing bench can get up to like 105 on the surface. Those guys definitely need those AC benches for sure. That's absolutely brutal.
And speaking of AC benches, that's another fun little fact you can find if you research enough. In Lambeau Field, I know the heating on the opposing bench is known to short circuit during playoff games at inopportune times. You read a lot about that throughout the years. Teams with the opposing dressing rooms are just fucking awful, right? They're uncomfortable.
Really.
The benches, they're small. Stuff where the heating doesn't work, the showers don't work. All these little things, teams will do to get an advantage. Don't let yourself think for 1 second that it's like, a coincidence or, oh, they didn't mean to. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing.
If you ain't
Right?
cheating, you ain't trying.
Exactly, right? I should get my fucking Patriots flag down and put it up for that. Everybody will be like, yay, boo.
Nah,
Right?
don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. They'll come for me. Right? They'll be outside my house tomorrow with the pitchforks and shit. But yeah. Yeah, so these are just the small little things that can give you an edge when you're doing your handicapping and researching for sports betting. Billy Walters talked about this when he was in his heyday. He would pay people at the local airport to go and grab all the newspapers on the floor, like the discarded newspapers from the airplanes. And he would go through all the local news, like, Cleveland Daily, New York, Chicago, etc. And he would read all the beat reporting to try to find any anomaly, any detail, anything to give himself an edge. Now, today in the social media world, that's quite different, but it's much easier for you, the end user. You can just do a quick little Google search. You can search on Twitter, find your local beat reporter, see what they're saying about camp. What's the coach saying? Can they decipher the coach speak? And things like that. So just going the extra mile in sports betting and in life can give you a leg up when most people generally don't want to do it, right? You don't want to read through a bunch of articles, or maybe even read in general, if school killed all your passion for reading, and try and find that one quote or that one detail that can maybe, give you that edge.
No, I mean, and again, there's always going to be shell games played, and I mean, you could even take baseball as an example. Like again, just stealing signs. That's what base coaches are for, and everything like that. Runner on second, he's looking at any change that the pitcher has. Sometimes guys will uh, end up. I saw it the other day. I can't recall which team, but a pitcher intentionally balked with a man on second, so he wasn't trying to read and pick up on what they were doing, which you don't hear about that often. You better be pretty damn sure you're getting the next out there if you're intentionally moving a guy over from second to third just so he can't see your signs. But again, there's always a game being played behind the game for sure. That's part of the game, baby.
Right? Hate it or love it, the underdog is on top. That's the game. And speaking of
Buddy.
that, yeah, that's right. I just came out with that. We're going guns blazing as I say that in my fucking sleepy ass suburb as I sit here across from a golf course.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I grew up real hard. Like this one time I wanted to go to the movies and like my mom couldn't drive me, so like she had to drive me at a later date. So I've really seen some things in my life.
Well,
But
not to
anyway,
get, no, I was gonna say, don't get too off topic, but that I feel like you're just talking about you're trying to steal Chael Sonnen's, come up story. He grew up in those mean streets of West Lynn.
well no,
There was litter on the ground. You know what I mean? There was litter there at one point. You know, to have somebody grow up in that kind of a situation. I mean, only one thing can emerge from it, and that's probably an undisputed champion, Chael Sonnen.
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm just telling a joke. Chael Sonnen, that wasn't a joke. That was a documentary.
No,
Him recounting his traumatic experiences. That was to help people
no.
who lived like him. Randy, do you know there were years his father didn't even make 100K?
There were years his father didn't even make 100 grand. And listen, a lot of people they're going to argue about this back and forth. Chael Sonnen's never lost a fight.
He's nope,
There's
nope,
not
never
there's not
lost.
a single fight he's ever lost. So the haters are going to be out there. There's always a shell game to be played. And if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Exactly, right? All those people out there who think if you tap out, you lose the fight. You lose the round, okay? So if you're up 4 rounds to 1 and you tap out in the final 2 minutes, god damn it. I should have counted. He should have won that night. And
They
speaking of
didn't
that,
explain the rules of the match.
no, they didn't. And also, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Chael Sonnen, legendary UFC MMA fighter, he was one of the first big personalities in the UFC. And the reason he was able to do that is because a lot of UFC guys, they really did grow up like rough, hard, and tumble. And he grew up in like a very wealthy suburb. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to use that to my advantage and make it kind of like a joke and like play into it. Talk about how he grew up on the mean streets of West Lynn. How
One of the
sometimes,
greatest good guy heels of all time, if we're
oh, he's
being
amazing.
real,
Yeah.
because there's not many good guys that could force themselves to be a heel. Uh, just pure talent. Pure
Pure
talent.
talent. And he would joke about how, like, sometimes the maids would come, but not always. Essentially, it was like a parody of, like, gangster culture and all that. Um, Fun
Uh,
fact about cheating, in his fight against Anderson Silva, you know who he is. He was on top of the world. Chael came and said, I'm going to take the fight to him like nobody has before. The first 4.5 rounds, he dominated. And then in probably the most legendary announcer curse I've ever heard, Joe Rogan said, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but obviously we have a new champion. He took Anderson down. Anderson was able to triangle him, and Chael tapped. He tried to do like
he lost the round, but he
the
didn't.
quick
He
tap.
didn't lose that fight. They gave him the belt because he was able to win in the last round. That's what it was.
Exactly right. Yeah, that was Chael's line after that. They asked him like, Chael, you say you're undefeated. You lost that fight. He's like, no, no, no. I only lost the round.
I
I
feel
didn't
like you
lose
think
that
I'm
fight.
kidding here, but I'll seriously argue this with you. He really didn't know the rules. He didn't lose that fight. He just lost that round.
Well, he probably didn't know the rules either when he popped for steroids 4 days later.
I don't believe they explain that in the rules either. But
Well, no,
anyway,
he had a legendary quote about that. Yeah, no, I'm on this topic, so I need to say this last thing. They asked him, they're like, Shale, your testosterone's 10 points higher than the average person's. He goes, 10 points. I go, yeah, 10 points. They're like, okay, obviously there's something wrong with the test. It should be 100 points higher than the average person's. And speaking of high testosterone, let's talk about betting on football. I made a video
uh,
yesterday talking about how in the NFL, they love their storylines. Good guys versus bad guys, right? The Manning Bowl, all this, all that. How many times did you see a primetime game marketed where, like, yeah, this team, they're the good guys. They're going to come in. They're going to beat the bad guys. They throw that slick video package together. One team's kind of portrayed as like, they play the right way, they're crowd pleasing. The other team, oh, that's the Smash Mouth team. They talk a lot of trash. They're the bad guys. You want to tune out all that noise when you're betting, and you can find a lot of value on those bad guy teams. I think the Raiders, I want to call them the Oakland Raiders because it just feels right, but the Las Vegas Raiders, which just, man, that feels weird. I think they're going to be that bad guy team, right? I think Pierce has completely fixed the culture there and has given them a team identity of hard nosed, crushing football. I think Crosby and Wilkins are just going to wreak havoc in that interior defensive line. And I think they're coming for the Chiefs, at least in terms of like, mentality. In terms of record and contending for a Super Bowl, obviously not yet. But they were fucking around with the Mahomes Kermit doll at practice. Mahomes responded on Twitter, so that's a nice little divisional rivalry we got going again. That used to be extremely tense and heated, and we saw Jack Jones kind of reignite it when he faked giving the kid the ball during the Chiefs Raiders game last year. So if you can kind of look past all that and think, all right, well, one's a good guy, one's a bad guy. The only good guy to you is the team that you bet on, right? That's the only thing that matters is making money. And I'll give you an example of this. I believe it was last year, or maybe even 2 years ago now. Browns Bengals on Halloween night. The Bengals were the home team. They were the favorite. The Browns, of course, have Watson and all the stuff, he has going on off the field. They're going in, and that was all the narrative, right? Everyone's going to settle in on Halloween. They're going to watch the Bengals stick it to the Browns. They're going to show Deshaun Watson what's up. They're going to beat those guys for signing that fucker. Right here it is. And the Bengals, excuse me, lost that game. Right, the Browns won that game. They came in, they ran all over them. Chubb had an excellent game. It was like a 3 point, 3.5 point spread. So, there's that spicy spread again. And the public perception got flipped. So if you just kind of followed that storyline, you got burned there. And there are plenty of other times you can get burned. Right? Like how many times have you seen a quarterback leave his team? He comes back to play his team. Yeah, that's right. Fuck them. I'm going to show all them. Let's go. Well, oftentimes when they leave, they go to an inferior team. You see this in college as well when guys transfer out. And of course, there are exceptions like Mayfield versus Mahomes, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. But a lot of times, right, those I'm gonna show them, the good guy's gonna show up. It's the hero. Doesn't really translate over.
I mean, storylines constantly, right? They constantly flip in the NFL. And again, just a storyline's much more interesting when you see that it's going to develop and change at a bit of a faster pace, right? That's why just like the MLB, for example, just ain't it for some people. It's a long season. The postseason's incredibly long, but storylines like that again. There's probably every single week in football. Again, depending especially on how the year's going, divisions are panning out. Things just move along a bit quicker and they tend to be a bit more dramatic. And that's why everybody gets so emotional and tied into the storylines of the week when it comes to NFL season because it's fresh, it's fast. And again, right, it's just that one game played almost in a way you can feel like almost every game in the NFL season has a playoff intensity behind it because there's just so few and they all matter. I am a sucker for a good storyline, but chances are with me though, especially if I see if it's like a marquee game, that's something I think I just got to be better at this year. Looking back on last year, just buying into way too much forced hype, forced storylines, forced rivalries. We saw again a lot of strange odds last year that were completely flipped as far as results are concerned. One that sticks out in my head specifically was the Dallas Arizona game. And I mean, again, with how bad Arizona looked all year, and somehow again they come out on top there. They were like plus 800, plus 900 money line there, and that wasn't even a discussion of the week as far as a game. That was like the most boring game probably on the 4 o'clock, or I can't remember if it was 1 o'clock or a 4 o'clock game last year. But sometimes, if even just speaking to value for a second, when these storylines, rivalries end up getting talked up really big, I feel like it really kills the odds, and you get in a situation where you're looking at a plus 110 versus a minus 110, especially with marquee games, because the betting public and everything else, and end up how they end up crunching the odds. I just got to stay away from the marquee games and the big storylines. Sometimes it's better to watch these big storylines play out when you don't have a dog in the race, if that makes any sense. It takes a bit of the intensity off and you can just enjoy what you're watching.
A lot of it can translate over to player props as well. Guy scores against his former team. How
Yep.
many people have you said that, right? Guy's gonna home run against his former team.
Hmm.
Anthony Davis in his return game to New Orleans. I know without checking, the over on his points was by far the most bet prop of that
Oh,
night. And he did get it, but that kind of shows you, like, the psychology that goes on here, right? The underlying thinking.
oh, for sure. I mean, again, whatever feels like, if whatever you feel like gives you the edge at the end of the day, you know what I mean? I encourage that for anybody. Again, for me, sometimes too, I tend to err on the contrarian side a bit myself. If everybody's talking about it, I probably don't like it and I want to stay away from it. The marquee games, the hype games, uh, especially as we get closer to college football right now. Those are the matchups that I stay away from the most. They are always brutal,
See,
always brutal.
I'm a little different. I have two points we can talk about here. See, they are brutal for the general public. However, if you can look inside yourself and accept being a contrarian asshole, you can make a lot of money in those primetime marquee games. How many people you think got burned last year by Mahomes not covering the spread against like the Jets or the
Oh,
Packers or another team?
oh yeah.
Uh, very first big game I had in college last year, LSU Florida State. I had Florida State, right? 2.5 point line. It creeps all the way in till it's like a 1 point game. Florida State were the 2.5 point dogs, just to be clear. LSU comes out and they have the strong first half, and then it just completely fucking flipped. And Florida
Hmm.
State dominated. Duke versus Clemson, that funky 12.5 point spread. Clemson number 9, they lose outright to Duke on the first game of the season. So yeah, if you can kind of look the other way and be against the public, and I'm not saying fade the public is just this thing that you can always do 100% of the time. It doesn't even work in some sports. I don't think it works in hockey as a huge hockey guy. But in football, specifically those marquee matchups on Sunday night, Saturday night that everybody's talking about, if the public's
Hmm.
on one side and the betting market's on another, oh boy. Oh boy. Those fuckers in Vegas are lubing up. They're gonna fuck you. And it's just gonna be pretty bad for the general public's wallet. Another example, probably the first time I really saw this in action. Do you remember the Colts Chiefs game? I believe it was 2 years ago now. The Colts had Matt Ryan. They were plus 6.5. They
Nah,
had the
not this one
awful
specifically. Now.
yeah, they had the atrocious start to the season. The Chiefs had the hot start. 6.5 point spread. They're just begging you to take the Chiefs to cover that, right? Chiefs win by a touchdown. It seems to be written in the stars, and the Colts beat them outright. It was on week 3 or 4, the upset weeks when, teams really dig deep to try to save their season. So stuff like that. And the other thing, if the general public consensus to you just seems fucking wild and stupid, it's okay to go against the groupthink and stick to what you think. I'll give you an example from the UFC. Manel Kape versus Muhammad Mokaev. They're beefing for months. They're beefing outside the octagon. They have to be separated at the weigh-in, have to be separated before the fight. How many people do you think there bet like fight does not go the distance?
Oh
One
yeah.
one guy to win by finish or something like that. However, if you kind of follow the sport, they're not finishers. Cobb does have
Hmm.
power in his hands, but he's incredibly low volume. He's a counterpuncher who picks his spots. Makhayev's a grappler. We saw what happened, right? To the point where Cormier on commentary was like, "What the fuck are they doing?"
Hmm.
Right? They're just kind of doing what they do. They're executing their game plans because they don't want to lose. So yeah, just 2 points there on groupthink, contrarianism, fading the public. That's all good stuff. That's all good stuff because you hear these terms thrown around constantly on Twitter. Like, oh yep, gotta fade the public, right? You can't just blindly fade the public. If it was, a lot more people would make more money sports betting. But in certain scenarios, where you can kind of look at it and be like, history seems to be repeating here. That's when you fade the public.
Hey, I hear that, man. I'm definitely one of them. You will catch me fading the public more times often than not, but not strictly off that. Not strictly off that basis, just because, but it definitely plays a part in it for sure.
hmm And sometimes, just to give you the caveat, the public position is the right one. Like I remember England versus the Netherlands, the public money was on England to advance. They did. Oftentimes in the NHL, I can tell you those big name teams who are good, Bruins, Rangers, Vegas, Dallas, if they're going to be like minus 140 or minus 150 against a mid tier team like a St. Louis, they'll just win, right? So those games, those sports with very long seasons, you're going to have the games where the public's on a favorite and the public gets paid. Unlike a
Yeah.
football where it's a little different. Yeah.
Right. I'd say if we had to compare or say two sports that are most similar, I'd say again like almost betting right, like hockey and MLB, very similar, and then NFL and MMA, definitely in a way, very similar. Much higher stakes, no second go arounds. Um, Injuries that you don't know about playing a factor. How hard it wants to be refed or not, literally with just decisions being just strange, or again early stoppage, late stoppage, so many variables when you're betting MMA. And then same thing with NFL these days, it could all come down to a couple ref in the passers, a couple down the field pass interference calls. Some games, if it's called a little bit tighter, you know ends up killing you. A little bit looser, but much more volatile. Definitely, when looking at the contrast there between the two sports, for sure.
hmm hmm Yeah, hockey is a different beast, I can tell you that. And hockey is definitely one that you need to follow a little bit, like somewhat closely if you want to make money betting it. It's something that if you're a casual fan or a casual bettor, like stupid shit can happen on a nightly basis and you're just like, "Bro, what just happened there?" And
Yeah.
if you're a hockey veteran, you're like, "Yeah, yeah, that's hockey, baby. That's how it works sometimes."
Missed it already, man. We're right around the corner. And with that being said, too, right? Really, no NBA news this week. Not much going on. We do have the Olympics. U.S. comes up on top today against South Sudan. Um, NFL news, nothing really. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're close, baby. We're close to preseason. You got Hard Knocks to watch on HBO. If you're a fan of the Giants or you're just interested in that in general, I'm not sure what the start date of that is, but definitely coming soon. Only news that we have out of the NFL, right, is this. What are we calling it? Eagle Eye, Hawkeye technology. Sony is going to be running it, pretty much again replacing the chain gang. And the NFL, when it comes down to at least like yard measurements and spots, apparently it's accurate up to a quarter inch. And apparently they're more concerned, it seems like how they were on the MLB side with pitch clock and just speeding the game up. Apparently, this Hawkeye should improve the speed of measurement by up to like 40 seconds, saving 40 seconds whenever it's needed. So less commercial cut, less extending of the game, more right back to the action, which is worse for the players because they definitely take advantage of those situations as like an extra timeout. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, it looks like the NFL following suit on what the MLB plans to do at the beginning of next year, starting the age of the robo ump for the MLB. That's been talked about the past couple weeks to start next year. And now in the NFL, we have this Hawkeye system. So interesting to see that develop. I'm not sure if you've seen anything about that.
I've seen the switch towards more technology similar to what the Premier League and other leagues have with VAR type of reviews. I don't know. I know there's human error, and I know that a lot of times refs can be biased, dare I say, even compromised. But man, I don't know if I want to fully trust AI or an algorithm to handle these things. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. A lot of people are going to be very angry at the fucking Terminator when he calls a strike instead of a ball, or when he says a touchdown's off by an inch and it's fumbled out of the end zone. So I'm curious how that is going forward. I think people may start clamoring for the old ways back.
And I think that's very possible too. I wouldn't leave it out of the realm of possibility that maybe there's a big transition next year, not this upcoming season, and then it could always be reverted. We will see though. The only thing that concerns me about it is it's going to usher in a lot of paranoia from people and all sports are fixed and all this garbage. So I feel like that opens the door a bit, but we'll see. They didn't officially say how much of a sample size that they're going to give this system. What I saw was some in the preseason. So maybe just a couple of the games, not even across the board, all the games for week 1 or week 2 of the preseason. I like that they're doing it unofficially so far in games that don't matter. But yeah, I feel like it could be, you know, a little awkward for sure, especially with so much money being on the line now with sports betting, and now it's all being drawn down to that. But again, right, it should be more accurate. Should be more accurate than the human eye. So we will have to see there.
We'll have to see indeed. I'm real curious. Maybe it's because you can't send the AI death threats on Twitter or Instagram.
You
Maybe that's
know,
part of it. Yeah.
these people, these people that are sending these guys DMs that their parlay missed. This is something, fellas. What are we doing? We got to stop this shit. We got to stop this shit. The fact that you're going to message another grown man that he didn't do X and Y for your bitch ass, stop it now. Come on. I mean, it makes my day when some of these guys clap back at the nobodies that message them. Like, bro, I don't give a fuck about your parlay. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there since that kind of just came up. We got to stop messaging these athletes about our parlays, man. Because you never know. You might catch one of these guys in a bad mood, and they might really just be like, you know what? I'm feeling like shit tonight. I should probably tell coach I'm sick. You know what? Put me in there with a cold. I'm gonna go 0 for 8. I'm gonna chuck up 7 bricks from behind 3 and make sure everybody who bet on my prop, you know what I mean, go straight to hell. But yeah, it's such a strange thing that we see in this day and age. At least with that, I mean, there will be no death threats to the RoboUmp. There will be no death threat to the Hawkeye, but I am sure there will be somebody to find a way to message the NFL official account about something like that. A measurement that was probably clearly controversial, made by a robot at some point. I'm sure there will still be somebody willing to blame it on something else other than they just picked the wrong bet.
Yeah, I saw Brent Rooker the other day. He replied to a guy who was like, "Man, you couldn't even hit like
Yeah,
a home run or something," and he was like, "Brother, I do not give a semblance of a fuck. Like you're
like
talking to the wrong guy." There's a famous video where there's a guy sitting courtside. He yells at DiVincenzo to like get more rebounds, and DiVincenzo turns, tells him to shut the fuck up.
yeah.
Uh, it's all this stupid, stupid stuff. There's some real bad shit out there too. Like players have said, guys have said some real racist, like out there fucked up
Oh
shit.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah,
And I mean that's just
yeah.
like absolutely ridiculous. You should be taken out back like a dog if that's how you're going to behave. But even just yeah, like I can't imagine that. I can't imagine buying tickets, sitting at an arena, and then harassing somebody on my team. Like, come on, bro, go out there and get 3 more rebounds. Like, bro, if I give credit to some of these guys because I gotta tell you, I I would probably be suspended from the league so many times as an athlete. Let a fan get within closing distance and chirp something crazy like that at me. I would be out of my mind. I would be baffled.
I'm gonna steal a line from Bill Burr here with like, Malice in the Palace and Ron Artest. You should be allowed athletes should be allowed to fight one fan a year.
I agree.
One fan,
I
right?
agree.
It'll make it very interesting because it's like game management, like, oh, is so and so gonna fight his fan tonight? How's that gonna go? He's having a bad night at the plate. Do the fans get involved? They see somebody having a hot game. They're like, fuck, I need to take one for the team and get my ass beat and get him out of there.
That
I-
would definitely be a universally bet plus 5,000 prop. I think
oh yeah.
everybody could get behind that. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Oh yeah, no, I would want to see it too. Like, like you really don't think those guys haven't thought about it? Like, man, I'm in
Oh
the
yeah.
top 1% genetically. I could kill this guy
Oh,
behind me.
oh yeah. I know
Yeah,
definitely like watching the Knicks years ago, Carmelo Anthony was getting into it with a couple fans back then too. Uh plenty of guys. A lot of these bigger stars too. I know Kevin Durant's had an issue with a couple of fans before too. And again, you look at somebody like KD, you don't think he's that big. Man, you'd be surprised what television does to these guys. This man is a tower. I cannot imagine pissing off somebody like Kevin Durant and he's standing over it. Absolutely terrifying. But with that being said, moving on. Only other news right now, we got the trade deadline that recently wrapped up for MLB. Not as big of a splash everywhere as we thought there would be. The bigger news, in my opinion, yesterday kind of went by quietly. The Dodgers were able to pick up Jack
Jack
Flaherty
Flaherty, yeah.
from the Tigers, which is absolutely massive. Between Glass now, Yamamoto, now you add him to the mix. Again, Dodgers have a long way to go still. They have lost a little bit of their scary edge, I'd say, in the past couple weeks, but bullpen in the starting rotation looks incredible with the addition of Flaherty now. I saw this morning. So the Yankees were making the move on him, but they passed due to his medical condition. Apparently, he had 3 injections in his lower back earlier this month. And for that reason, the Yankees backed off and were no longer interested. Um, Acquiring Jazz Chisholm Jr. seems to be just the genius move of the year. Past 3 days has been phenomenal. He got a base hit in his first game as a Yankee. Then his second game as a Yankee, multi-home run game, back-to-back shots. And then last night, does it again, and then a 3-run blast later in the game. So he's the first with 2 multi-home run games in his first 3 games with a team of any franchise. No franchise has had a player do that. So a little bit of history the kid's made already, which again is just, you don't see it. You see a lot of offense produced these days, but you don't see back-to-back multi-home run games from a guy built like him. I believe he had 15 home runs when he came to the Yankees 3 days ago, and now he's at 18. So he's suddenly gone from a contact hitter to a power hitter, and he moved up in the lineup. So genius looking moves on the Yankees. They have some revitalized life. All the Yankees needed was some Jazz, allegedly. And now they have Stanton back and he's looking healthy. Divisions, though, are looking as close as they could possibly be. Orioles, Yankees tied at 65. Red Sox creeping right in there at 56 and 50. They've taken a slight skid in the past 10, sitting at 3-7 over their last 10, but they still look dangerous. Put up crazy numbers yesterday. Arguably like top 2, top 3 offense on any given night in the league right now. American League Central, Guardians still sitting on top with 65 wins, but Twins and the Royals battling it out at 59 and 60 wins for second place. So that division is not closed up yet. Mariners somehow took the division back from the Astros. They are 2 games ahead now. That division overall is looking a lot closer. Even though the Athletics are in last place, they're 12 games back, which I had them being a lot worse at this point in the year. And they're not looking too shabby. Got them tonight. I saw that you gave them out against the Giants.
No, bro, it's the opposite.
Well, yeah, you had Giants 1.5 against the A's.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say. Interesting case. Ballsy pick just because of just how offensively sound the A's have been. But looks interesting. I see what we did with the pitcher matchup there too. But again, this team is, I believe, just oh crap, I can't remember the other team. But there's only 2 teams this year have scored 20 plus runs, and the A's are one of them. We saw what they've done in the Orioles. We saw what they've done in the Phillies. Just large numbers against teams that you do not expect. Rooker is an absolute stud. They have a couple quiet studs there, and they surprisingly didn't move anybody really that I saw. So interesting what they got going on over there. They may have some long-term value, but American League West still looking like Astros and Mariners going back and forth towards the end of the year. And then in the National League, Phillies just got swept today by the Yankees, which much needed for the Yankees and furthers the Phillies skids that started since a little bit before the trade deadline. They appear to be okay, but the bigger news there is the Mets are 1 game back from second place. They are slowly chipping away. Still one of the hottest teams in the league quietly right now. They're 7-3 in their last 10. I feel like I've said that the past 2 or 3 episodes here. Every time we talk, the Mets have been 7-3. They've been 7-3. They've been 7-3, and it's showing from where they started to where they're right now. Right after the All-Star break, they're in position. So the Phillies got to tighten up a bit. That bullpen I don't think got enough answers resolved through the trade line. I would give them like a D minus. I really think the Phillies needed to make some moves and they didn't. They seem pretty content with what they have. Um, National League Central, very probably the tightest division in baseball right now. You got the Brewers in first with 61 wins. You got the Cardinals at 56, and the Pirates still hanging in there with 55 wins. So that division's not sold yet. Looks like a three-way race through the rest of the year. And the Dodgers actually are looking in a bit of trouble. They're not playing bad, but the Diamondbacks and Padres are just playing better. The Dodgers are 6-4 in their last 10. Diamondbacks are 7-3 in their last 10, and the Padres are 8-2 in their last 10. Dodgers got 63 wins. Diamondbacks and Padres are tied at 58. So they're both a collective 5.5 back, but they're catching up. So all things accounted for, the craziest thing to end this year, this MLB regular season, would be if somehow the Dodgers lost hold of the division and did not finish first. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yes. Definitely, in my opinion, with how it looks right now. And it looks like the Diamondbacks are doing the same shit they did last year. Just a real second half awakening and playing damn good ball. So we'll have to see how that shakes out in the National League West. But again, we're seeing definitely trouble in first place across the league for the Dodgers, for the Phillies. It's been that way for the Yankees and the Orioles going back and forth. And again, National League Central looking pretty damn close. So baseball season is moving along, not quite fast enough. Kind of wish football was here already. We got a couple more weeks, but that's all I really got for you on the MLB side this week.
On the MLB side for that division specifically, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see double wild card and on top of that with the division winner, right? So Padres maybe wild card 1, Diamondbacks maybe wild card 2 or 3. See how that shakes out. I expect that to be an extremely, extremely competitive race to the finish. And I'm trying to give you some futures bets here, but man, it's just so difficult.
And no, it
Especially,
really is. Value's
yeah,
changing every
every
single week
single
on these.
day. Yep.
I mean, again, it's you don't expect a lot of these teams to have the stranglehold that they have on the rest of the division. You don't expect them to really maintain the distance that they had when they were holding first place early on in the season throughout. But again, really, I mean, I'm seeing here again, even in the Phillies, right? Arguably the best team in baseball up until this series against the Yankees. Second place, 6.5 games back. National League Central, 5 games back is second place. National League West, 5.5. American League Central, 6. American League West, 1. And American League East, half a game. So pretty much every division is just about on the cusp of 5 games, which is very doable with this much season left. We're not even in August.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that shakes out. Like I said, I like the Mariners. I said that a few episodes ago. I like them to go decently far with that pitching rotation. I think that's ready and made, built for the playoffs. Other than that, though, man, I really it's hard. We don't even know who the playoff teams are going to be yet. There's no set playoff picture. Like we could have division winners change, we could have wild cards change week by week. I'm very curious to see how this playoff race ends up.
I'm probably going to give it another week or two, and then I'm probably going to give out a handful of end of season futures bets just so we get a little bit closer to the clearing. But yeah, I got nothing official in the way of end of season predictions right now. I just got back today. It's giving back my followers the free picks that I give out. Just because, again, playing that first week coming off the All-Star break is just absolutely just hold your nuts, man, because the games get wild again, and overs are just incredible. And a lot of games have been one-sided, but just the sheer amount of offensive scoring, I've been just letting it pass by a little bit, letting the dust settle, and when the picture becomes a little bit clearer, that's when we pull the trigger and start giving picks out again.
Yep, so just keep your head above water. Football is going to be here soon. And I always tell you, I like to keep it real here. I'm not going to bullshit if I don't have anything. I'll be honest, man. I've never been liking the Mariners. I really got nothing. So
Yeah,
that wraps
no,
it up for
nothing
me.
from me too.
Yeah, that wraps it up with me for tonight. Randy, you have anything else?
Nah, that's all I got for you today, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So, thank you for joining us for another great episode. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. We hope to see you back next week, and we have so much stuff coming down the pipeline for you. See you soon.
Take it easy.
You got me feeling lucky. I'm putting everything on black.